Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into the imaginative, often terrifying world of Stephen King.
Mhm.
We're sifting through a stack of material centered around his 1990 collection, Four Past Midnight.
Yeah, 1990. So this collection landed, what, 16 years into his career after he was already, firmly established as America's literary boogeyman.
Right. And the sources point out this came after different seasons. That was the one with stories like The Body and Rita Hayworth, stuff that wasn't straight up horror.
Exactly. So Four Past Midnight feels like, well, the sources suggest King signaling a return to darker stuff. He even says in the author's note something about closing the book on Castle Rock, even though, not all of the stories are actually set there.
Interesting. Okay, so our mission for this deep dive, let's unpack these four distinct tales, dig into the specific fears they tap into, and see what connections pop up from the material we have. Let's see what knowledge nuggets we can unearth for you.
All right, let's do it. And the sources really do emphasize the variety of terror King's playing with here. It's not just one note.
No, definitely not. Let's start with the Langoliers. This one just, wow, throws you right into the deep end. Midair. American Pride Flight 29, LA to Boston.
Uh-huh. And the main viewpoint is Captain Brian Engel, a pilot just catching a ride. He wakes up and boom, almost everyone on the plane is just gone, vanished.
Just gone. It's chilling.
And it's the details, right? The sources highlight it's not just the people, it's their organic matter. What's left, just inorganic things, jewelry, fillings, someone's knee implant.
Yeah, creepy. Leaving this small group of survivors totally bewildered. There's the blind girl, Dinah Bellman.
Right, and Nick Hopewell, the sort of mysterious British guy, Robert Jenkins, the mystery writer.
Bethany, the young woman. Craig Toomey, the businessman who's already kind of wound tight. Laurel, Albert, Don, Rudy. A real mixed bag.
And they managed to land the plane, which is terrifying in itself, in Bangor, Maine. Only the airport is, well, it's deserted, utterly empty.
And the world feels wrong, doesn't it? Muted, faded, almost flat, two-dimensional.
Exactly. Flat is a good word. And technology is just fritzing out. No radio, navigation beacons are dead. Even matches don't light right. It's like reality itself is wearing thin.
That sense of decay, it's
Yeah.
almost like another character.
It really is. But then something else starts. You hear it first. Dinah, the blind girl, she picks up on this sound.
The Rice Krispie sound, which is such a weirdly mundane, almost silly comparison at first.
Right. But then it gets worse. She says it's bad, scary. The sources describe it growing like a vast vote beginning to break up, or this awful sound like wind over a pipe or some inhuman choir, and it's coming closer.
Meanwhile, you've got Craig Toomey just completely melting down.
Oh, Tui, yeah.
Yeah.
He's obsessed with this Boston business meeting, totally ignoring the bizarre reality around him.
And he's convinced these things he calls Langoliers are coming for them, eating the past. He's tearing up magazines.
Yeah.
It's quite a breakdown.
Yeah, the sources show his panic really escalates. They actually have to, tie him up eventually. He becomes this grating but significant source of tension.
So it's the writer, Robert Jenkins, who starts putting the pieces together.
Yeah, using his trained deductive mind, as the sources put it, he figures they must have flown through some kind of rip in time. They're in the past.
A past that's being consumed.
Exactly. And that sound, that's them. That's the Langoliers.
And the description of them is just nightmare fuel. These black things, balls or coils, little legs, making this yammering, inhuman cry as they just devour everything. Not just things, but time itself.
Literally eating the past. It's such a mind-bending concept.
So to escape, they have to fly back through the same rip.
Right, but there's a catch, a big one. The sources really break this down. Their plane's fuel, because they landed in the past, is past time. It doesn't have the oomph to get them back.
They need present time fuel, essentially.
Yeah, and the only way to get enough of that forward momentum, enough presentness to punch through the rip again, is for someone to stay behind, to be consumed by the Langoliers as the plane goes through.
Which leads to Nick Hopewell's sacrifice.
The sources describe him just dissolving as the plane crosses back. All that's left, his fillings, his knee implant, just like the people who vanished initially, erased.
God, it's stark. But they're not done yet, are they?
Nope, they land again, supposedly back in the present, but things still feel off, muted.
And they realize the plane needs fuel. It needs time.
So they have to go back through the rip again to sort of scoop up time from the past by flying through it.
And this is where that really strange moment happens with Dinah.
Yeah, during that second crossing, the sources detail this bizarre, almost transcendent thing. Dinah, the blind girl, she briefly gets her sight back, just as Craig Toomey, who they left behind at the airport.
Oh, right. Toomey got eaten by the Langolier.
Yeah, as he's dying, consumed, she somehow sees through his eyes and finds death. Beautiful. It's this weird mix of total horror and this, like, fleeting, inexplicable clarity.
So strange.
Yeah.
So the plane gets through.
It gets through, but their fate, still up in the air, literally. Flight 29 keeps flying west, days and nights blurring past faster and faster, heading into this accelerating, totally unknown future.
Wow. Okay, so the core horror there, based on the sources, is this huge cosmic idea. Time isn't just, ticking along. It can be this active, destructive force.
A devouring force,
Yeah.
leaving absolutely nothing behind.
Okay, so from that massive external horror, King pivots hard with secret window, secret garden. This one feels much more internal, personal, psychological.
Totally. It centers on Mort Rainey. He's a writer living out in Tashmore Glen, pretty isolated, dealing with a really painful divorce.
And that isolation gets shattered when John Shooter shows up.
Right, this guy with a very specific look. The sources mention a sharecropper's face, black hat, and he marches up to Mort's door with this bombshell accusation. Mort stole his story, plagiarized it, a story also called Secret Window, Secret Garden.
And Shooter's claim is all about the timing, isn't it? He says Mort stole it after the divorce.
Yeah, and the sources point to the key similarity being the ending line, where the killer says the victim's death will be a mystery, even to himself. That specific line.
But Mort thinks he's got an alibi, right?
Yeah.
His similar story, Sowing Season, was published way earlier, like 1980.
June 1980, in Ellery Queen's Mystery magazine, years before Shooter claims he wrote his. So Mort should be in the clear. But proving it, that's the problem.
His agent didn't represent him back then, doesn't have the copies.
Right. The sources mention his agent, Herb Creekmore, only came on board in '82, and Mort's own copies, destroyed in a house fire in Derry.
Which feels convenient.
Extremely convenient. Mort even starts to suspect Shooter maybe set the fire, and Shooter gives him this tight deadline, 3 days to find the magazine.
And then things escalate badly.
Yeah. People who try to help Mort, or who are just sort of connected to the situation, like his ex-wife Amy's boyfriend Ted, they start getting killed.
Seemingly by Shooter, sometimes using Mort's own stuff, like a poker.
Exactly, which is another layer of messed up.
So as all this is happening, Mort's mental state is just crumbling.
Completely fraying. He's stressed, isolated, questioning his sanity. The sources actually draw a line here to a previous nervous breakdown he had years before over movie adaptation stuff, so there's maybe a pattern.
His ex-wife, Amy, she's worried too, watching from the outside.
Deeply worried. And it all comes to a head in this confrontation in Mort's bathroom, I think.
Yeah. He sees his reflection in his shattered mirror, and it hits him.
The awful truth. Shooter isn't real. Not in the way he thought.
He is Shooter.
He is Shooter. It's an alternate personality, born out of all that stress, the divorce, the isolation, the pressure.
And maybe guilt, too. The sources mentioned something of an earlier incident.
Yeah, that's another interesting layer. Back in college, he apparently took an idea, Crowfoot Mile, from another student, John Kintner. He thought about passing it off as his own.
He believed he didn't actually do it back then, but the feeling.
The feeling of maybe being caught, of being a fraud, seems to resurface with Shooter. So maybe Shooter is tied not just to the divorce stress, but to this older, unresolved guilt about creativity and ownership.
Yeah, Amy finds the proof later, right? The manuscript.
She does. She finds the Secret Window manuscript, supposedly by Shooter, but it's clearly in Mort's handwriting. The sources use her perspective, too, to kind of reflect on the whole painful divorce, her affair, her own part in it.
So this story, as the sources frame it, it's a deep dive into psychological horror. How guilt, anxiety, isolation can literally create a monster inside your own head, blurring that line between what's real and what's delusion.
Definitely. A very different kind of monster than the Langoliers.
Okay, shifting gears again. Let's talk about the Library Policeman. This one feels like institutional dread almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We're in Junction City. Sam Peebles, he's a real estate agent, needs help with a speech. Someone points him to the local library.
And he meets the librarian, Ardelia Lortz.
Ardelia Lortz, who seems, polite enough on the surface, but the sources describe this unnerving intensity she has, especially about overdue books. Library rules, almost an obsession.
And the library itself feels off. It's too quiet. like a frowning quality of the silence, the sources say.
And its appearance shifts, right? Sometimes normal, sometimes these impossibly high shelves looming in the dark. There's just this palpable sense of pressure. Return your books on time, or else.
Which is where Dave Duncan comes in, the local wino.
Exactly. Sam runs into Dave, and Dave spills the beans. He reveals the library's dark secret, Ardelia's secret. He had this horrific 2-year period under her influence. A merry-go-round in hell, he calls it.
And she made him draw things in the children's room.
Terrifying posters. The sources list some of them like Simple Simon on a meat hook, Goldilocks being eaten by bears, just awful, grotesque stuff. And Dave's the one who introduces the idea of the library policeman, this entity tied to Ardelia.
Punishing the rule breakers.
Basically. And Dave explains Ardelia isn't human. She's this ancient thing that feeds on fear, specifically kids' fear, and she takes over hosts.
He says she was gone for a while after killing someone who asked too many questions.
Yeah, a guy named John Power. But Dave gives Sam this chilling warning. She waits. And Sam might be next.
Okay, so the stakes jump way up. Sam has to go back.
He does. He gets this cryptic message from Dave, pay for the baseballs, and he goes back with Naomi Higgins, a woman who looks disturbingly like someone from one of Dave's awful posters.
And the library they enter isn't the present-day one?
No, it's like they step back into the library as it was in 1960, and there they find Dave captured by the library policeman, which turns out to be another form of Ardelia.
How do they beat it?
Sam figures it out. He forces the creature to swallow red licorice, which sounds weird, but it's connected to Dave's traumatic memories. It's like a trigger, and the entity just convulses and dies.
But it's not quite over.
Not quite. Dave gives one last warning. She waits. Naomi tries calling 911, but the call goes to the 1960 police department. They get back to their own time, 1990, picked up by Stan Soames, who Dave alerted somehow.
And the experience leaves a mark, a physical one.
Their hair turns white, both of them, instantly aged by the terror.
Wow. And Sam has that dream later about being a kid terrified of returning an overdue book.
Yeah, it taps into that deep-seated childhood fear, that primal anxiety about rules and punishment that this entity exploits. It's about how evil can twist something seemingly safe, like a library, into a hunting ground.
Okay, one more. The sundog. This starts innocently enough, right? A birthday present.
Yeah, Kevin Delavan gets a Polaroid Sun 660 camera for his 15th birthday. Simple gift.
Except it's not simple at all. There's this anomaly.
A big one.
Like,
Every single picture Kevin takes, doesn't matter what he aims it at, shows the exact same thing.
this grotesque black dog.
Always the dog. And worse, with each picture, the dog seems closer, more solid. Eventually, the sources say it looks almost three-dimensional in the photos.
And it's described as black, menacing, fangs showing, wearing a string tie.
Yeah, the string tie is such a weird, specific detail. Very King.
So Kevin's dad, John, gets involved.
Understandably freaked out. He takes the camera and the photos to Pop Merrill. He's a local pawnbroker, deals in weird stuff. The sources mention John has some history with Pop, like a past gambling debt, so there's a bit of tension there already.
And Pop sees the danger.
He does. He might be cynical, but he recognizes this is bad news. He even shows the focus to his network, these collectors of strange things. He calls the Mad Hatters, McCarty, the Post Sisters, Emery Chaffee.
What do they think?
Reactions are mixed. Some see how dangerous it is, want nothing to do with it. Others just see an ugly dog. But Pop makes a connection. He recognizes the string tie the dog is wearing. It belongs to McCarty.
Whoa, so it's connected to their world already.
Somehow, yeah. And things get weirder. Kevin starts sleepwalking, taking more pictures of the dog in his sleep. It's like the dog's influence is leaking out of the camera.
So Pop and John decide they have to destroy the camera.
It's too dangerous. They take it out to Pop's backyard, get a sledgehammer.
And just as they're about to smash it.
The dog steps out of the photograph, becomes real, three-dimensional, terrifying, right there in the yard.
Oh man, what do they do?
Kevin reacts fast. His dad had bought him a new Polaroid. Kevin grabs it, snaps a picture of the actual physical dog monster.
And the flash does something.
It seems to stop it, freeze it, traps it back into being just a picture again. But now, it's a picture of the monster in their world, on Pop's lawn.
Chilling. So the dog is... what? An entity from somewhere else.
That's the idea the sources point to. Something from another dimension, another reality, using the camera, the photos as a doorway, a way to manifest and cross over, an invasion through an everyday object.
Okay, so looking at all four of these, wow, King is really covering a lot of ground here, fear-wise, just like the sources said.
Absolutely. The Langoliers is that huge cosmic horror, reality itself eating itself, external environmental terror.
Then Secret Window is pure psychological horror. The monster is internal, born from the character's own mind. Guilt, pressure.
Right. And Library Policeman gives us that institutional dread. An ancient evil hiding in a familiar place, feeding on childhood fears. Localized, but deeply creepy.
And the Sundog is the invader from outside. An alien entity using a mundane object, a camera, to break into our reality. The uncanny meet a real.
What ties them together, though, as the sources note, is putting ordinary people in these insane situations. A pilot, a writer, a realtor, a kid. They aren't superheroes. They're just trying not to get consumed or driven mad.
And in each one, there's a specific object or place that acts the focal point, right?
Yeah.
The plane, the manuscript, the library, the camera. The ordinary becoming the gateway to terror.
Exactly. The mundane is the conduit.
And the author's note connecting 3 of them to Castle Rock, even if they aren't all set there. The sources suggest this collection was King, deliberately wrapping up that Castle Rock era of his writing, going out with a bang, so to speak.
Yeah, closing a chapter. And the sources also mention comparisons to writers like Kafka or Orwell or Bradbury, which makes sense when you think about it.
How so?
Well, the sort of bureaucratic nightmare feel of the library, the psychological breakdown in Secret Window, the sheer weirdness invading everyday life in Sundog. You can see those echoes. King's tapping into those deep anxieties about reality being fragile, about sisters being corrupt, about the darkness inside us.
Right, okay. So we've taken a pretty deep dive into these 4 tales. They really show King exploring terror from all angles: cosmic, psychological, institutional, dimensional.
Yeah, from time eating itself to your own mind turning on you, to monsters hiding in the library or stepping out of a Polaroid.
It's a powerful reminder, reading through these sources, that horror isn't just, ghosts and goblins. It can seep out of anywhere. Ordinary objects, familiar places.
Yeah.
Turning the comfortable into something terrifying.
And there's that lingering idea, too, isn't there, that encountering this stuff, it leaves a mark. White hair from traveling through time, or just that chilling feeling that maybe she waits, that something is still out there.
Definitely leaves you thinking.
So maybe here's a final thought for you to chew on, something that builds on all this unsettling stuff. We usually think knowledge is power, right? But what happens when the knowledge itself is the terrifying thing? When learning about the nature of reality or your own mind is the horror? What happens when understanding doesn't save you but damns you?